If you feel like you can't get through a single task without being interrupted, you're not imagining it, friends. In this episode, I'm going to be breaking down the two biggest, interruption type disruptors out there. There's the external chaos, and then there's the internal brain buzzing around incessantly, right? And then I'm also going to be breaking down actual strategies to help minimize both the internal and external interruptions. All right, friends, today is all about interruptions. Now, the strategies I'm going to be sharing with you here today are things that I have been using for years. And the irony is, just this morning, I got an email in from a top program student telling me that she had implemented a visual strategy that I'm going to be sharing here on the podcast today. And here is what she wrote in. This was her quote. "I think today was the first time in 3 years I actually got through a complete 45 minutes with no interruptions. Pure magic." Let's paint the picture here. I'm sure none of you can relate to any of these scenarios, right? Let's say you're at home with little kids. It's the time of day where you allow them to watch a program or something. You get them all set up so that you think, "Oh, okay, now is when I can go finally return that phone call or do whatever." And I swear, even if they're 10 miles away, the minute you pick up your phone, all of a sudden, all your kids are right at you needing something when they didn't need it just 2 seconds ago, but they miraculously know, right? Or maybe you're at work. You finally have that opportunity to sit down and dive into that thing that needed to get done. And maybe, the phone rings, or if you're using Slack, the Slack, or Teams blows up, right? I don't know about you, but it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse that any time you feel like you've set time aside for any kind of focus work, the interruptions just start pouring in. Now, the thing with interruptions, it's important to understand that there's two types of interruptions. There's the internal one, which is our own mind going, right? You're really trying to focus, but that your brain keeps going elsewhere. And there's the external one, which is the one we typically think about, right? The phone, the family member, the kid, the spouse, the coworker, the 20 coworkers, the technology that you're expected to, be on and available like a Slack or a Teams. And so today I want to break down both the internal and external and give you some interesting science with each one of these because there's some amazing data around this, but then most importantly, equip you with some strategies to help really minimize this. First, let's talk about the more obvious one, which are those external interruptions. All right. And this can be at home or in a work environment. So, when we think about the work environment, there was an interesting study in the Journal of Applied Psychology that was done in 2020. And the results of that study showed that women are actually more frequently interrupted at work than men are. And the next layer of that study was really interesting because it said it was often done in a more dismissive tone. So at the workplace, we're seeing that women tend to be interrupted more frequently than men. And I even see that here in my own home. I mean, my husband and I both work from home. We've both worked from home now for 5, 6 years. And if we're both working and it's like, there's a no school day or something, my daughter will always come to me first. And sometimes I'll call her out on it. I'm like, dad's here too. And she'll go, he's working. I'm going, as I'm sitting at my desk also working. There's just this underlying thing that women get interrupted more at work, even in my own household where I teach this stuff. Now, when you also layer in, if you are in a caregiving role, there was a study recently done by Pew Research, and they actually showed that women are more likely to be the first point of contact from schools, daycares, etc., and that 75% of the mothers surveyed reported being the primary contact for any family-related needs. So that means whether you are at work or whether you are at home, as a woman, you are likely going to experience far more interruptions than our male counterparts. So no, you're not crazy if you're thinking, Is it just me? Am I the only one being interrupted? Is my spouse no chances are they aren't? And so it's not that we just feel like we're being interrupted more often. We actually are. And a lot of times it's not even being noticed by the people around us. So today I want to talk about first, let's talk about some strategies for this external interruptions, right? People or things actively interrupting you. So, the very first thing that I think is really important for folks to do is to actually inventory over the course of a day how many times are you interrupted? And it's not enough to just inventory it, right? I'm not just talking counting the number of interruptions, but to actually jot down when did it happen, who did it, and why. And there's a reason why we're actually going to do this. But if you go over the course of a day or two and just jot down, you could even just use the notes app in your phone or something. Every time you're interrupted, like, oh, here was the time, here was the person, and here's why they did it. What this allows you to do is go to the next step to actually look for patterns, right? So, first, let's tackle if you're in a work environment. You may notice that there is a certain time of the day that you get a lot of interruptions. And I know in a previous job that I had, when I did this, I was noticing with my team that it wasn't the mornings, it was that after lunch window every day was that I was constantly being interrupted. But what you're wanting to do is kind of look for, are there any patterns, right? Now at home, it may be, hey, that running the gauntlet window from like post school to dinner time is full of interruptions. You may notice that pattern. You may notice one family member interrupting more than others, all right? But having this awareness and looking for patterns now allows you to do what I call actually planning for interruptions. So let's talk through two different strategies here. So, strategy number one, if you noticed, as I did in my work environment, that like that little like hour after lunch, kind of from 1 to 2, 1 to 2:30, was when I felt like it was not like it was a revolving door in my office. I started actually planning for that, meaning I did not, on when I was doing my weekly planning, pretend that I was going to get solid focus time. And it actually got to a point that I blocked my calendar from kind of that 1 to 2 o'clock every day, meaning nobody could schedule appointments with me, and just had my office open and planned to kind of have a revolving door for an hour, answering questions, handling interruptions, etc. And that kind of fit the need for that time. Instead of pretending it wasn't going to happen, I saw it and I planned for it. Now, another layer of this strategy here is this is where this visual tool that I love to recommend, which is what I got the email about just this morning, comes into play. And this can be both in a work environment or at home. I really encourage everyone to have some kind of a visual tool that is a sign to either family or coworkers that this is a no interruption time. And so I've worked from home for a really long time. When my daughter was young, like it's toddler age, I actually involved her in this. And at that time where I worked in the house, I didn't have any doors. So it was really easy for people to just come on in and interrupt me. So I had her create a sign for my chair. I got her involved in it. So it was sparkly and glittery and all of that wonderful toddler decoratingness. And it was a sign that I would hang on the back of my chair that I sat in at my desk that was a visual cue for my family not to interrupt me. Because it may have been that I was just about to start recording a podcast or was getting into heavy creative work that I needed to have an uninterrupted flow state for. Now, in the work environment, if you're in a cube, you can do the same thing. You can have a sign for your chair, or if you have an office, what I did in that kind of interruption team that I was talking about, I would shut my office door. Now, the key with these visual things is you need to communicate with everyone what the visual indicator is, and then unfortunately, what we want to do is then have that no interruption sign up all day long, right? But we can't. We need to have times where it's on and times where it's off. So in an office setting, it would be, hey, if my door is open, that is a sign, please come on in, ask me questions. I'm here for that. But if my door is shut, this means like, unless it's an emergency, please do not interrupt. Right? And so as I would go through my work day, it would ebb and flow. My office door might be shut for 45 minutes, then it could be open for an hour, then it would be shut again for a half an hour, then it could be open, right? And so with the people that I worked with, seeing, oh yeah, there's times throughout the day where that door is open. They were getting the signal, yes, I am here for support. Yes, you may come in and ask me questions, but no, I'm not at your beck and call 24/7. If the door is shut, this is you may not like emergency only interruption. And I promise you, the thing you're going to find is your interruptions will go down because sometimes in the heat of the moment, they're like, oh, I'll figure it out all on my own, right? Or the kid's about to interrupt you and sees that visual cue and they're like, oh, I can go ask someone else for help. So with those external interruptions, you need to plan for chunks of time each day to be interrupted so that then you can plan for focus time. Now, in a work setting, this even means like step away from Slack, step away from Teams, shut it down. This is your focus work time. Email goes off, all of that, because it's going to minimize those external interruptions. Now, let's talk about the internal ones because these are the sneaky ones, right? Now, you may be thinking as a woman, I just feel like I can't quiet my brain, right? Every time I sit down to do focus work, it's like my brain starts going a mile a minute. Well, guess what? There's a reason why it is. So the studies on brains in both male and female brains show that female brains, our right and left side, like we all have right sides of our brain and left sides of our brain. Well, in the female brain, the conversation between the right and left sides of our brain is shown to be much more frequent than in our male counterparts, right? Basically showing that this is why that constant conversation and dialogue is happening. Our right and left side of our brain is in motion a lot, which feels like an interruption, right? You're sitting here getting ready to focus on something and suddenly your brain goes, "Oh my gosh, did I get a birthday card from mom?" Right? It's not quote mom brain, it's female brain. It's that right and left side going back and forth. So I'm going to share with you a strategy I use anytime I'm sitting down to do focused work. And if you've ever been to any of my live teaching events, you see that we do this together before we kick off any kind of intense learning state where I really know that people need to have good focus. And what I'll do is I'll open up my phone and I'll turn on a 2-minute timer and then I pick up my one notebook. I teach this one notebook system. It's a game changer. And I will grab my pencil. And for 2 minutes, I will just allow myself to write whatever is on my mind. All right. I mean, sometimes I'll sit there for 2 minutes and not much comes out. Other times a lot comes out. Now, you're not creating a to-do list. All right. That's not what we're doing here. You're not writing down the thing that you're going to do right afterwards. What you're doing is you're actually telling your brain, all right, I know you got a lot going on in there, and I don't want you to feel like you need to hold on to this and worry that I'm going to forget. So what we're going to do is we're going to get it all out on a piece of paper. So that way, and the reason why we have to do this on paper, right? Your brain needs to see you getting it out and putting it there because then you're showing it, I got you. I'm not going to forget. Now, what you're going to do after your focus work is what I call processing your notes. I'm not going to cover that whole thing here. I've got an entire training on the One Notebook system. You can grab that if you go to megansumrell.com/one notebook. All right. But this is really just a true brain dump process for 2 minutes. Because what it's going to do is it's going to quiet down a little bit that back and forth of your right and left side. It's going to show your mind, hey, I don't need you to remember this thing. I don't need you to remind me of it. I'm putting it right here where I'm going to come back later and tackle it. And so anytime I'm sitting down to do focus work, even recording this podcast episode, pulled up my phone, I set the timer for 2 minutes and I brain dumped. And I'm sitting here looking at what I wrote on my notebook. It's like one random, I mean, it's just kind of a bunch of not like one was a quote that I was thinking of. 2 things will likely end up going on to my backlog to be done another week. And then another one was just I kept thinking about this conversation I had yesterday that I loved, and I jotted that down. So again, it's just getting whatever is taking up space in my brain. Now, the reason why minimizing interruptions is so important for us is it's incredibly important for you to understand that every interruption that you have during your day can cost you between one of the latest studies, and this was done at the University of California in Irvine, says that it can cost you between 23 and 30 minutes of full focus. Let that sink in, 23 to 30 minutes. So if you're trying to get into flow state, right, where you're just like in the zone and you haven't turned off your notifications on your phone or whatever or Slack and something dings at you, that's stopping that focus. And it can take anywhere from 23 to 30 minutes before your brain gets back fully where it was before that interruption hit. So compound that by the number of times you're interrupted. If you're currently in a season of life where you feel like, I don't think I ever just get to sit down and get in the zone anymore. I can't remember the last time I did. Well, you're probably right. And it's probably because of the ridiculous amount of interruptions coming at you all day long. So the sooner you can get on top of this and create planned interruption time versus you are not allowed to interrupt me time, and then lean on this strategy for quieting that internal interruption as well, you are going to find that you're able to get so much more done in a higher quality in less amounts of time because we're not constantly getting that interrupted where now we got to kind of ramp ourselves back up to get back to where we were before that interruption hit. So I would love for you, if you're going to take that kind of interruption inventory that I talked about for the external one, right, where you actually over the course of a couple days jot down how many times you were interrupted so that you're looking for patterns, come find me out on Instagram. Come tag me at Megan Sumrell and shoot me a DM and let me know how many interruptions you had. I would love to see. I don't know, it's probably gonna be a little scary, but I genuinely want to see like what are you dealing with from an interruption perspective right now? Hope you have a great week. Happy planning.